Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video going to give a update. This will be the June update for ASIC prices. We're going to go over what's dropped, what's it looking like, what's going on, are there any good deals? Just to give you a heads up, there are for some BTC miners and ETC miners, right? So we're going to be talking about that. We'll go through it. We'll look at the trends, see what's going on, right? So if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned, all right? So let's get to it. So we'll start with profitability, which has been tanking, right? All this crap going on with Binance and Coinbase. Profitability is tanking on certain coins, right? Not all coins, but specifically more so altcoins, right? This has really been affecting the altcoins specifically. BTC has been holding up. ETH has been holding up. And I think the main reason ETH is holding up is just because they weren't listed as one of the securities on the two things, right? So for the most part, everything else is going down quite a bit, though. We'll see if that trend continues, right? That was kind of my outlook that the summer might be not so hot just because we had such a good start to the year. That was kind of what I was basing everything on. That was the reason I'd been taking profits the past few months in anticipation for something like this. And it did buy a little bit, right? So this is those times. But let's get to profitability. So number one, we're not even going to do number one because it's unrealistic. So still, pretty much overall though, are those L7s, right? Which are still holding up strong. Still profiting over 10 bucks a day, depending on the variant. We're looking good there. The K7 is about the same as it was last month, right? It's between 5 and 6 bucks profitability. The KA3 has gone down quite a bit though, right? Current profitability there is right under 4 bucks. It's about 375. Yield is slightly higher here. They have it at 18. Realistically, it's closer to like 19, 19.5, depending on your pool. So something of note there, but actual fiat profitability is down, but overall yield is currently about where it's at, right? Hash has been about the same. No real restocks there. We go down the list. The E9 Pro is holding steady around 3 bucks a day, which is give or take about what it was. BTC miners have gone down a little bit, right? Last month they had that super good month because all the ordinals and all the BRC20 stuff. So they are dipping a little bit, but the XPs are still fairly profitable. And the other guys are barely around break even, which is expected, right? This is what it is. So overall, things are looking pretty much the same. But the K3, the Cadena, though, got hit the hardest with this recent dump here. So now looking at prices, Nhash started doing these little price things. The main thing to know of here, and this is kind of general with all of them, the cheapest thing that's a standout are these lower, smaller variant Bitcoin miners, right? They specifically have listed this 90 terahash model for $7.99, right? So it's hard to tell what's up with it though, because it's three models actually. It's a 82, a 86, and a 90 that had these aggressive prices that are new releases. It's hard to say the quality there, but the price is definitely there, right? $800 freaking dollars, which is insane. They do have the S19J Pro Plus 120 at $1649, guys. So these are for new. This is from Nhash. Again, I've never really personally bought from them. This is more from price comparison. In a second here, I'll give you the prices for BT miners, which is one I personally use, and their prices are pretty good right now. Those are the main standouts from them, though. The main thing being these lower end S19s, right? $7.99, just bonkers, crazy. So let's look at BT miners now. The main standout with them, and the standout in general, I'm gonna highlight BT miners prices only because they're out of the bigger vendors, they are some of the cheaper ones. And again, it's one I've personally used, and it's one of the few that use credit card payments. Now, a lot of people are like, we're on crypto, why are we using credit cards? But it's for consumer protection, right? That's one of my caveats or one of my criteria for purchasing. So that's the main reason I'll focus on these guys. But typically, these are some of the lower end prices from all the major vendors. That's also the reason I'm going to be showing their prices. So let's start out with possibly the best deal right now for BTC miners, right? So they do have the S19J Pro Plus, the 117 terahash model for $1585, right? They do have the 120 at $1899, but definitely the better deal overall is definitely the 117 terahash model. Again, 3 terahash ain't nothing. Crazy. So this is like pretty much the low back in January. This is about what the crazy price for the 100 terahash models was, right? So now we're getting a model that's 20% more hash, give or take, for about the same price as that low back when BTC was, 18 grand, right? Or lower. It was probably like 17, somewhere around in that ballpark, which is pretty crazy. I think a big part is the fact that they produced a ton of these, right? For any of you guys who follow any of the vendors on like Telegram or Discord, you'll see the videos of them posting up, showing pallets and pallets of these things in the warehouses, right? Because they're not really moving them. And I think that's why they're getting priced so aggressively now. They got delayed forever, so there was some stuff going on there. One other thing to note, these also do have those old heat sinks, right? Might be an issue for some of you guys if you're concerned there, but just something to take note of, which I've mentioned in previous videos. But at this price, it's pretty nuts, right? Because at this point, yes, it can go lower, right? Because BTC can go down. It's currently still higher than what it was at the beginning of the year, right? So technically, these can go down a bit more. But realistically, how much lower are they going to go? Right? You have to play this risk versus reward game right now. 1585, technically next month they can go down to $1,300. Or even let's say they get a drastic cut and they get 30% taken off and they go down to $1,000. In the grand scheme of things, is $500 really going to be worth it to risk it when you're anticipating that in a year and a half, 2 years from now, this thing will be worth 4, 5, 6 grand, right? Are you willing to take that risk? Because what if BTC pumps to 35 next month and now this guy's 2,000, 2,500, right? Because we know that it directly correlates with that price, right? As that price goes up, these guys are going to go up, right? If it goes down, again, the thing with it going down, it needs to be a sustained downtrend. One little dip isn't going to do the price. It's the sustained downward action, which it seems like that's what they may be anticipating. But I think what's kind of unique here is just the fact that it seems also they've produced a ton of these. That could also be the reason that they're hesitant to drop that S19K we've been talking about, right? And that could be the reason also is that they haven't moved enough of these to really necessarily debut another model, right? Give or take, they're probably going to wait till they clear some of this out before they drop that model, because again, that guy also is a lower tier model as well, meaning it's going to be more of a budget option, somewhere probably in like the $2,500 range, right? Which may be more appealing than this guy because that guy is like 136 terahash. Right, so something to keep in mind. But at this price point, if you're into a BTC miner, this might be it, right? So something to take note of there. The other big deal are the XPs actually, right? So the premium is starting to go down. It is down to 3,200, right? So not bad at all. The 141 terahash models at 3,489, but realistically, I would go for the 134. If you want that extra hash, just overclock it. Use one of these aftermarket firmwares and just overclock it to that 141 or higher, depending on what you're doing. Or I know a lot of people have been underclocking these for that efficiency, right? Just to increase that current profitability, right? So it depends on your outlook and what you're doing and what you're looking at. Then it's up to you on whether or not that premium is still worth it, right? Realistically, these I don't think have much more headway to go down. Right, just because they're pretty much rock bottom. They can go down a little bit more. Maybe they go down to 1,200. Realistically, though, I think this is going to be pretty close to the rock bottom. Right? These guys, in my opinion, they still do have room to go down only because it's such a big premium still. Right? It is more efficient. It is top of the line. But you got to factor in that you can still buy 2 of these guys, right? And get, if you get 2 of the 117, you get 234 terahash. And it's still cheaper than 1 XP, bringing you 134 terahash, right? So there still is a premium for that density and efficiency aspect. So to me, this guy possibly still has room to go down. Will it though? Maybe, maybe not, right? Some of the other big farms that we've been able to see what their purchase point was for the XP, this was give or take it, right? And this is what their bulk discount of buying like 10,000 of them at a time. So something to factor in there as well, just depending on how many you're looking at buying. Right? Something to factor in there. Pretty cheap. Now let's go to some altcoin miners. And this is where it's been pretty nuts. If any of you guys caught any of these used ones, crazy price, right? They had the 8550 and they had an 8800. The 8550 at $32.99 for any of you guys who were able to get one. They are out of stock. I'm sure it was up for a day, and it probably sold out that same day, right? But overall, their prices are still low, right? The 8050, which is the lowest of the lowest end. I've never even seen this model before, but this guy's at $39.99. Realistically, I'd probably go with this one because this typically is the lowest one. This one seems abnormally low, but this guy's at $4,088, right? So super, super cheap. Still currently one of the best, most profitable miners. Also keep in mind, these guys do have that low power mode. Hive does have their firmware for it, so a lot going on with it. I know there's still rumors of a L9 coming out, but again, none of that has been confirmed. But I would expect, if it's not released anytime soon, expect an announcement probably at their WDMS. The next one is sometime usually in the fall. Or maybe some news comes out at Mining Disrupt, right? So something to factor in, but just keep in mind if it does come out, it's probably not going to be for a while, right? And I know there is news of that script miner and possibly this Locotech thing. We know the Locotech thing won't happen until, I think they were saying December at the earliest. And then for Jazz Miner, we don't really have any official confirmation, right? We'll see what's going on there. Probably get an announcement or some kind of debut at Mining Disrupt, right? We'll see what happens there. But this price though, guys, like still pretty enticing, man. It is getting there. We'll see if they go any lower. I'm anticipating they may still go a little bit lower only because basing it off of the stock levels of a lot of these, smaller vendors, it does seem like they have a lot of them in stock and the prices are continually going down. So they have it at $40.88. But for example, some of the Telegram vendors have them in like the $3,700, $3,600 range. So to me, there is still possibly room for them to come down. But again, anything can happen the longer you wait. What if things pump next month? You're taking that risk that the prices might increase, right? You have to do your charts, look at your power rates, factor in all those things, and see if it makes sense to you, right? Because at this point, you're kind of playing with how much lower it can go, right? So for me personally, though, I wouldn't be looking at it if I'm buying it only because it's not part of my plan, right? Part of my plan is because I look at the ASICs as actual assets, right? I don't want to buy anything old because I want it to like appreciate essentially. So the goal for me is to get the latest and greatest now. And hopefully it'll still be a higher tier, top tier come the bull market and sell it at that point, right? So technically, like I wouldn't be interested only because it's extremely likely that we're going to get one within the next year, right? Either a L9 or this Locotech thing or Jazz Miner, whatever. And then at that point, that's the one I would consider, right? Depending on the price point, depending on anything else. But we'll see there. But it's looking pretty enticing. And again, this guy at $4,000, or especially if you're able to get one used, this is insane. $3,200. Pretty nice deal for every buck, especially considering you're still making $10 a day profit, right? So again, just things to consider, and it just depends how bullish you are on Doge, right? You got to look at those future profitability points and see if what makes sense, right? So the other big drop, just like we had talked about last month, this is what we're anticipating, and this was my guess what Bitmain was going to do as an answer to the Jazz Miner's deficiency was to lower the prices, and we were on the money, right? Right pretty much when the official release came for that more efficient Jazz Miner, these guys dropped prices pretty much all around every vendor by like 20%, right? And again, that was what we were looking at, that's what we were anticipating, and here it is. Right, and BT Miners does now have the other variants listed because, again, they're finally getting stock of these things and they're finally coming out. So they do have lower tier models, and they actually do have the one higher tier, right? The main model was 3680. They do have a 3780 now. Realistically, bang for the buck, I would go for the lower end, right? I would go for this 3480 model. 2177, guys. This is lower than what it was at release, essentially, unless you got it from Bitmain. You got it from Bitmain, you got it at $1,300, but aftermarket price, this was pretty much the low, right? So pretty good price. Again, pretty solid unit. It's been doing its thing, and it just depends on how bullish you are on ETC. But overall, it's been a solid gainer, and for $2,000, man, it's kind of hard to beat, right? So something to think about there if you're interested there. One other interesting thing is that we noticed a few months ago they started re-releasing new OG E9s, right? Which is kind of interesting. and they also have a different variant. So this is one thing I kind of noticed on some of the vendors that had like Russian stock. There's actually like 4 or 5 variants of these, right? And they all were coming from Russia, which is kind of weird. But they're still making these, right? There's still new models that you can get freaking $1,300, 1344, right? Currently not really profitable, but if you have super cheap power or you're bullish on ETC, something to consider, right? They do have these profitability things here. They're totally wrong though. I would highly recommend using Mind the ASIC. They tend to be a lot closer to the actual price, right? So we did see that Z15 Pro come out. Still too high, right? I think it's going to be one of those that once it releases, it's just going to gradually drop until it finds a floor. Mainly because just the profitability is so low, right? It's not going to be a whole lot of interest, especially considering all these other potential buys, right? So 27.59, that's what most of the vendors have them at. If we look at profitability real quick, let's see where we're at. It is here about $1 a day, right? So this is one I can definitely see as it comes out. Potentially the price goes down just because that profitabilities go down. Not really that hyped of a project. Not really, doesn't really have the pumponomics. We'll see what happens there. I think it's going to have a similar fate to like that D9, which just continues to drop, right? It's been pretty much $1,000 a month drop. So now last month we had that significant drop down to 4,600. Now another drop of 36.99, right? Which is pretty nuts considering this guy was $8,500 at release. Okay, so again, this is one because the profitability is not there, the hype isn't there, it just doesn't have it, right? It's not as popular as some of these other tokens. It's not as popular as like Cadena or even CKB, which in reality aren't super popular either, but their community is, right? The prospect of it is these guys, man, it's rough. Rough. How much lower is it going to go? Probably still going to go down until it finds a bottom, until people actually start buying them, right? I think that's why it's been so aggressively dropped. It's just nobody's buying them. At this point, they just want to get them out. We'll see how low they go. It's probably pretty close to the bottom, though. We'll see. Maybe we'll hit 2,500 next month if we follow the same trend. But again, it's one that I don't have on my radar at all. I'm not really bullish on Dash. Overall potential's not really there either. But again, if you see something that we don't, might be interesting to you. So something to take note there. The K7 is starting to dip a little bit. Still way overpriced though. They did go down to 5,800 for the smaller guy. The 63.5 is a 6,650. And I think the only reason that it's even that high is only based on the fact that it's starting to become more rare, right? And that's pretty much what's keeping the price so high. Kind of like that Cadena miner, the K3. It's freaking still like $8,500 for most vendors, but it's only because they still haven't really had another restock, right? Like the K3, even if you're bullish on Cadena, I would not pay the $8,500 because again, it's going to be one restock away from coming in at 4,000, right? So realistically, it's kind of good in a sense that the profitability is kind of garbage right now in fiat value terms. Only because it makes it less likely that they'll release more right now, right? At this point, they might as well hold off on them, wait till the spring, maybe we'll get a little pump, and then at that point drop them, right? So for me, I'm liking that. Hopefully it stays this way, and it's less enticing for them to release them. That way our yield stays the same, right? So if you're still bullish on it, again, yield is the name of the game right now, right? So something to take a note there. So the K7 is starting to come down. To me, it's still not cheap enough though, because of the value there, but just depends on that. Let's look at what else. One thing to note though is that because of the prices going down, right, the fiat profitability is going down, people will start kind of giving up, right? They did get a certain amount of yield. They may be looking at something else. You're going to see more of them for sale, right? So just because Bitmain isn't restocking and that's what's keeping these prices up, you're going to have people giving up and starting to sell, right? So on eBay lately, right, the past few weeks, there hasn't been a ton of them, but the few that have been coming up, they've been selling for significantly cheaper, right? In May, there was two models, right? There was a lower model by the same guy. I'm guessing this was the 58 terahash model. They had it listed at 60, but this one sold for 4,000. The higher tier model for the 63 terahash sold at 45. And this guy, they took a better offer than 5, so probably sold for like 47, 45, somewhere around there. This one sold at 49, right? To me, these are much more fair prices. Again, eBay, as long as, you know, you go through their, I've done a video on them, but as long as you go through their history, look at their feedback, it is, you do have that 30-day guarantee, right? So it's kind of less risk in a way, only because you do have a guarantee from eBay. Regardless of what they put in the description, they could put, you know, no refunds or no returns, no nothing. They're going to side with the buyer 100%. If you buy this thing and it either doesn't come or it doesn't come working all the way, you will get refunded, right? So just take note of that. So mainly for the K7, I've been kind of eyeing the other ones. Typically, they're higher than a lot of the vendors, so it's not even worth it there. But the K7 is one to look for. If you're looking for a K3, this is probably another one that people are going to start giving up on. Because again, a lot of these guys, especially these guys who paid like freaking 12, 15 grand, and they're making $3 a day, you're looking too hot, right? So some of them may want to just cut their losses and invest the 5, 6K they may get for it into something else, right? So we do have one that ended here last month at about 6,200, which realistically to me is still a little too high. But just something to keep an eye on is that if we continue sideways like this, there may be opportunities like this, right? So if there's one you're interested in, if the things make sense, the tokenomics make sense, you think you're going to have a good return on that investment, then it may be something to look at. Just factor in different things, right? Like with the K7, they do have a halving coming up in November this year. So just, you got to look at the tokenomics. You got to really research that token. Don't just look at the profitability. Research that project, look at the tokenomics, see if it makes sense, and go from there, right? There's a lot of things that factor in, especially with ASICs, right? GPUs or FPGAs, you have more flexibility because you are able to switch algorithms. But again, with ASICs, it's going to mine that one thing, and that's it. So you really got to research, guys. You got to look at it. Don't FOMO in. Do your research. Narrow it down to which ones you're interested in and which ones. Look at your price points, right? That's going to be the biggest factor, is just price points, what you're able to get it at, right? Certain ones are going to be still too expensive for what they are. For example, with that Kadena miner, all the vendors still have it at 8,000. But again, it's only because of the fact that they just haven't restocked, right? Pretty much what was out there is out there, and that's it. And that's what's keeping the price up. So not necessarily the profitability of the miner in this case or the prospect of the coin. It's literally just the availability of the miner itself, right? So factor those things in. One other reason I did want to know also, that one thing that's interesting as far as the prices of all of these, not just any specific ones, is that the prices currently, especially for these BTC miners, some of these L7s, the E9s, they're to the point where they are the closest they've ever been to a lot of these vendor prices, right? So I use like Unistar or a lot of these Telegram and Discord and WhatsApp vendors for price point references. And typically they're like 20, 25% cheaper than any of these bigger stores, right? These latest price batches though, they're within 5 to 10% and sometimes just right on the money, right? Which is the closest they've ever been with a lot of these, right? Especially with like the E9 Pro. I think some of them have them listed like right at $19.99, right? So there is about 10% there, but that's still closer than what it typically has been, right? Typically, it's 20, 25% more. The other one being this guy. This is pretty much the vendor price, and even actually with the XP. The XP vendor prices are anywhere from like right under $3 to like this $3,200 price, right? So to me, that's another indicator that this is potentially some of the best prices we may see. Again, it's up to you, and it depends on the specific ASIC, right? Like again, with those KA3s, way overpriced. These guys, though, if you're looking for BTC miners, maybe some of the best prices, right? So just factor those things in, and it just is interesting that they are that close to even those much, much lower prices. Again, the reason they're lower is because you're buying direct. It's less secure because you're buying just from random guy on, Discord or WhatsApp, which again isn't my preferred method. I know some of you guys have your own vendors and you have faith in them, and that's cool, but For me, I like going with either like BT or Coastal, just depending on their price points, right? Those are the two I talk about a lot, do reference a lot, only because, again, those are the ones I personally have bought all of my hardware from. So I can personally 100% vouch for them, vouch for the customer service, what their responses are like, because, again, also when I purchase through them, it's not through like an affiliation with the channel. I have my channel account or whatever. It's just my regular account that I intentionally keep separated from any of these things because I want to buy it from that perspective, right? Because at that point, that's how you get a true representation of what it's like, right? If you go in and like, oh, I make ASIC content, and go in there, so what's going to happen? They're going to cater more to you. They're going to give you more customer service, possibly something of that sort. And at that point, that's not giving you a true idea of what it's like to buy from them, right? So if any of you guys are interested in them, I do have affiliate links in the description. No, not trying to shill you or anything, just in case you are interested in purchasing from them. But again, I would recommend doing your research. Don't just take my word for it. Look at other reviews, other websites, and do your thing, right? Again, the biggest thing is just the price point, right? You have to see if it makes sense and availability and all that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, guys, just wanted to give you that update because these prices are looking pretty juicy, not just on hardware, but even just coin prices right now. Right now is a good DCA time. Not financial advice, just saying. So just wanted to give you that update. Let me know if you guys are interested in buying, right? How many of you guys are still looking at hardware, or if you're pretty much stocked up? Let me know how's it's going, right? So again, guys, please comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, guys, and I am out.